All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Paris Pittman. This is the Contributor Experience Special Interest Group for Kubernetes. Today is August the 1st. Where does the time go? No idea. Wake up, it's the 1st of the month. Anyway, we have a full agenda today. I will copy and paste the agenda in the chat for convenience. Please feel free to write your name under the attendee list if you have not already. I'm super stoked for a couple items on this list. I see that our friends at CNCF are on the line, which is great. That's one of the updates. But first, let's see, we've got our typical focal update. Actually, no, before we start that, I want to make sure that people on the line have introduced themselves. Stanton, I've actually never seen you on this call before. Typically, for folks that have never been on the call before, we have them introduce themselves if you feel comfortable. Would you like to give a brief introduction? And if you've introduced yourself on another call before, I apologize. I just might not have been on that one myself.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Hey, my name is Stanton Xu. I'm working for Dell EMC. I just started looking at the Kubernetes, so registered myself for a couple of the Google groups, try to dive into those meetings, get myself familiar with what's going on here.
That's awesome. That's actually the route that we tell most contributors to do. Be a fly on the wall, see how this operates, and you will find a way to add value. We are sure of it. There's also many other ways to add value. So if you'd like to talk to any one of us, we'll happily help you sink in.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Thank you and welcome. All right. And then it looks like Christoph put me first because he knows I'm probably long-winded. So I did submit a proposal. It's sort of a discussion proposal, if you will, because I knew that I was forgetting things in the justification. And frankly, I felt like it was already the most verbose proposal I've ever written in my life to sunset a mailing list. So what I wanted to do was just quickly go over some of the key action items and points, and then open up for discussion, which is why I wanted to take it here today to the meeting. So essentially what we're trying to do here, oh no, oh my God, Vlad, you know what? I just totally missed you, didn't I? Shit. Okay, well, hold on, let me finish this really quick and then we can go right to you. So what we're trying to do here, because this is a hot topic right now, we're ultimately, I mean, the long-term strategy here is us consolidating what we have currently where we can, so we can provide a better experience to both users and contributors who are looking for either information or looking to post information to our various communication platforms. We thought that the first easily picked fruit, if you will, is with our users' distros. Because now that we've stood up Discuss, we realize that a lot of the activity on Discuss has been user-related. Much of that is very similar to the user's mailing list, and that's where we're having a lot of problems with things like spam, and it's a little arduous for moderators to deal with it for various different reasons. And what we're trying to do ultimately is sunsetting a mailing list would not necessarily delete it by any means. It would archive it. So we could flip the switch back on at some other time, but people would just not be able to post, nor would they be able to join the group anymore. Does anybody have any questions, concerns, comments, plus ones, or major disagreements with the proposal at hand?
Big ol' plus one.
Yeah, same here. Absolutely. We've talked about this extensively for the past, I think, 2 months. So yeah, this is definitely a resounding yes from me.
Okay. And I see Josh plus one in chat. Anyone have dissent? We did see a little dissent on the mailing list. However, George, Bob, and some other ones have jumped in to help out with that. And I was going to add a lot of that to the proposal as well, Bob, especially the point about how it worked well for other projects, and then also the Chinese community. But again, I was just such a verbose such a verbose proposal already, and I knew we were going to discuss things on there. So it looks like we've heard Sebastian's concerns. Last call for concerns. All right, so what I'd love everybody to do, that's +1, if you could respond to the mailing list, especially if you have a very explicit +1 or something that you think is, a very good reason for that, please do me a favor and add that +1. So what our next action is at this point, let me open up the proposal too, where I listed the actions. Our next action is to set an issue. So that we have this documented properly where we make decisions. And then also we're going to email the Kubernetes users with the intentions after this discussion, after the issue link has been set. And then we'll leave it a time box of 5 days to voice their concerns. And then the cool thing about the GitHub issue is, Bob, you can add in like the Chinese stuff if you'd like, and all of you can add in things that you think might convince this group of population to be okay with it without objections. And then after that, we can next week maybe we can see how things have went with the mailing list, and then talk about actual dates of implementation, and then ultimately running a marketing campaign to get folks more aware of both Discuss and the fact that we have sunsetted a mailing list. So, Vlad, I'm so sorry. I got so excited to sunset this mailing list. You have no idea. I just cut you off.
It's been a long time coming.
It's been a long time coming. So I was like, Vlad, we did it. All right, next. Vlad, you want to kick it off for the focal update?
Yeah, actually, and actually, it's good to hear that you're sunsetting this, because it just means that Discuss is going to be another source of information I can pull. So actually, it's kind of interesting to listen to that as well. Yeah, so I mean, not too here. I'm sharing my screen. So again, not too much to share. So again, to take a step back, Focal is a bot that runs on the Kubernetes users and a couple of the channels that basically looks for answers that are very common, or looks for people answering questions, tries to store them, and then tries to reiterate them back when somebody asks a very similar question to reduce the number of questions. So not too much has changed. One thing I added, I talked about a little bit as a work in progress last time, was this it was called Teams, now it's just called Workspaces, but the same idea, where be able to partition the sets of questions and answers into kind of their own little workspaces, to say like, well, there's a default, but then you could say like, here's all the Kubernetes stuff, like here's all the channels that are started in Kubernetes, that'll be all one workspace, so that all the questions are kind of contained within there. And then, like the SIGs or something could be with their own container or something like that. And then you can do like another one. The idea for this was also to like partition off things like careers, so that if you do like a full roll on and like get every single channel on here, then something like careers could be completely independent from the Kubernetes stuff, so that like, because usually they're talking about one or the other. It doesn't really make sense to intermix the data. So this is kind of a work in progress. So there's not too much otherwise to show. There's basically one of the big things I'm working on, as always, is just the relevance for the answers is still a little low. I'm trying out a completely different model this within the next like week or two, probably, where we'll do a lot of like post filtering. So right now, like a lot of the smart things that happen about like figuring out what the answer is basically trying to say like, looking at like a block of text and saying, what is actually the question in this text, and how do you like ask that question for our search? So now I'm going to do a lot more like post filtering to say, okay, well, now that I got some search candidates, how do I like filter out the most important ones? So that hopefully will improve some of this, feedback. I think like within the last couple of changes, it kind of looks like it's gotten a little bit better because of kind of the yellow up here, but it's still definitely nowhere near where I would like it to be. So definitely work on this. And then I made some UI changes on the storage side recently that I was following that for a while. I thought that maybe it would be interesting So basically, before it kind of like there was like a button and it was a little bit more friction. So it was asking like, "Hey, do you want to store this conversation?" It said there was like an option to review the answer or ignore it. Now it basically just says, "Here's the question, here's the answer. Click store." Or you can edit the question and answer. It's there's been basically today there's been a lot, but like in general, it's been kind of the same. Probably not too much feedback. So still something that's like an interesting work in progress. Otherwise there's been some interesting interaction, but so basically the biggest interaction I see directly with the Focal bot is that like when we store a question or when we answer a question, it like pops up this like, hey, this question has been stored or this answer has been or this question has been answered, and people can click to see the answer, and that's kind of where most of the interaction is. So basically not too much difference. Work in progress is the, again, trying to get relevance and trying to do post filtering, post search filtering, and then the other thing is trying to bring on other data sources. So probably within the next week or two as well, I'll try to pull in all the Kubernetes docs, and try to figure out how to like extract only sections of the entire doc, not just like the entire Kubernetes doc. So if somebody has a question, it's like, go read this giant thing. It's like, go read just this subheader or something like that. So yeah.
Thanks for being awesome, Vlad. Any questions for the Slack app that is Focal? Last call. Vlad, so what do you feel is like a good success point for you here?
Well, what do you mean?
So right now, do you feel like the app is successful? And if not, then how much longer do you feel like you need for it to do what you need it to do for your scope?
Well, I mean, I don't think it's ever going to be successful, right? Like it's always going to be just a work in progress of like, okay, how do you tweak things to make it more relevant, to, make sure that the questions detecting are better, to make sure that the answers detecting are better. So, I mean, I think at the end of the day, like, I feel like it's providing value. I mean, I guess everyone else tell me if I'm wrong there, but I think I don't think it's ever going to be like just, hey, it's done, right? I think it's always going to be like a work in progress and tweaking it and making it better and, figuring out what users want and figuring out what features people want, and then figuring out what other data sources people, I can bring in to like help answer this stuff and expand that way. But I don't know. Does that answer your question?
Yep. I mean, I figured it would ultimately never necessarily be done, but for like the purpose of what we're calling this is like a experiment. Like what would be a good metric for us to take this from experiment into actual day-to-day usage that we're going to use this go forward? I
guess the original, thing that we talked about was just doing it for a certain amount of time. I think that time is actually now about over.
Yeah.
So, if you want to like, I don't know what that means, I guess, to take over or to talk about. But I mean, otherwise, I don't know what metric. I think at the end of the day, like the metric that I follow, that the most important, I guess, to me is just the amount of relevant answers that I post, or the amount of relevant answers that this thing provides that is actually that people provide feedback that is actually helpful. To me, that's the most important one. And I think that's still, low. That's still a lot lower than I expect. And basically for the last like month, I've been trying to do everything like every week to, trying tweaking something every week to try to change that. But in terms of like, well, I mean, I guess the other question is, what does that mean to go into like full production mode? What's the difference between now and like that?
I guess the difference is now we can tell you that it's not working and tell you to take a hike in the nicest way possible. But I guess if this is something that we do take on regularly, I mean, we wouldn't have you come in every week to give an update like you are currently. We would maybe want you to come in and give an update on some other longer cadence period of time.
So basically you're just tired of hearing from me every week.
I'm not necessarily tired of hearing from you. I just think that once we're out of an experiment stage, that we don't necessarily need to hear from you as often.
Sure.
I think then we would also maybe make an announcement that we're actually using this, both on the forum and in Slack.
Yep, exactly. And then maybe that will also leverage more users for you, Vlad, too, with a wider announcement.
Sure. So, I mean, are you asking me when, like, so I guess, like,
all right,
yeah.
I think what we should do is next meeting, we should all have a serious talk and vote about what we think about the app, now that we all have heard the last, like, I guess 8 weeks or so of Vlad's updates, and then decide if we think that this is good for the community. And you want to take it there? All right.
Sure.
All right, Vlad, next week will be your last weekly update, and then we'll talk about the future at that point. Cool?
Sure.
Awesome.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm going to drop off. Let me know if anybody has any questions or anything on Slack.
Of course. Thanks so much, Vlad.
Thank you, Vlad.
You guys.
All right, next hot topic that I'm super stoked about, and I'm not being sarcastic, I am really super stoked about it, is the GitHub administration. Christoph, are you on? Oh, there you are.
I am. Good morning, everyone. So I'll make my spiel here pretty quick because I've got stuff out to the mailing list and I've got a PR on GitHub. But we are finally at a point where we can establish a formalized team that is going to handle all of our GitHub administration tasks. Since the beginning of the project, this has always been a mix of volunteers, Googlers, basically whoever kind of held the keys, and everything has been a juggle. But we are going to finally formalize that process about who is effectively responsible for that job. And therefore, we can also start setting policies around things like webhooks, third-party integrations. What is the formalized process for setting up a repo? Which things like that have been kind of like whoever has the power, somebody will come and set up your repo and stuff like that. So we can start formally establishing those policies, procedures, and the humans behind it. So this is a bunch of tech debt that has been long lingering, and hopefully we will be able to eliminate. These PRs are to actually form that team, set that role, and then once we have that established, then we can go and clean up the 30 odd people who have, super user root access to all of our stuff, that many of whom aren't on the project anymore. So yeah, if there are questions or concerns, I can either hear them now or feel free to post to the mailing list or to the PR.
Do you have enough do you have enough people for the admin team?
Yeah, so I'm seeding that group at this time with the people who are doing that job today, like the people who have kind of volunteered for that job today. Right now it lists 5. I expect that we'll probably add Caleb to that list. Caleb has been a bit radio silent for a while. Yeah, thanks Garrett. Garrett just posted the list in the chat. These are the people who've been doing it today, and we're going to seed it with that group. But ultimately having a group established and making sure we have coverage in time zones and that kind of stuff is important. And if any of these people who have been doing the job right now, if any of them leave the project, we know we need to look at backfilling and establishing a process for doing that.
Okay, and do we have somewhere the information is going to go about how our contributors can contact this group as a group?
Yeah, so there's a GitHub team that's listed in the document, and the listings of all the individual members. I don't know if we would look at spinning up an email list or anything like that. I don't think we need that overhead, but at least the individual members and a GitHub team are both listed.
What about the membership distro?
We're gonna take on. Go ahead.
Sorry, no, go ahead, Aaron.
I was gonna say like running the membership distro is one of the things that this team is in charge of, right? Since we're in charge of like getting people into the org.
Yes. I would also see, like, not too long, I would kind of want the membership distro to go away as a list, because eventually, once we get the tool up and running, which I don't actually see being that far away, the way to get membership into the org will be open a PR. And then when that PR merges, the bots will do what they need to do to add you to the org. So then we'll have records. We'll have records of all of those membership changes in GitHub. Yeah, so that I see. Eric and I were going to look at it again this week. I don't know. Both of our schedules have been busy, so we haven't actually been able to connect on that. But right now we're very close. I'd say ballpark within the next month, we should have the bot up and running, and then it'll be like you submit it to membership, and then we open a PR on your behalf. But eventually we can just pull membership out of that loop completely and rewrite the docs that, like, hey, you want to be a member, you open a PR against this org with all of your information, and then it gets signed off and then merged.
But yeah, I would say like in between now and then, I would assume that this group is going to own promoting people off the membership list. So that, like, in terms of like document and stabilize the patient we have now, and then automate this problem away in the future.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yes. So
I might have missed something. How, if at all, this addresses membership across multiple GitHub orgs, yes?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Just making sure I caught that.
any last items for Christoph, especially any objections? Sounds like most of us are pretty +1, but any concerns? All right. Christoph, anything else? Oh, what about
Nope.
next steps?
Yeah. So I've got, I think, lazy consensus I've got set at tomorrow at noon.
Okay, cool.
So if barring any objections, tomorrow at noon, I would go ahead and merge that PR, and then take the first steps, like making sure that all those people who are supposed to be owners are owners on all of our orgs. I've kind of got access myself, so I'll go ahead and make sure and unify that everybody has access to all of the orgs. And then the next proposal to come out of me will be the reducing, like basically auditing and getting rid of everyone else who should not have that. That will be a big, long issue that will ping a whole bunch of people and basically advise them, like, hey, once we establish lazy consensus here, we're going to remove your privileges. And if there's anything in particular that you do need access to for some reason, now is the time to let us know, so we can make sure to add you to the right teams, for example. Because I'm sure there will be, when we actually do that, there will be people who currently have root access to everything that didn't realize, like, oh, I'm not on the right teams to do the things that I actually do need to do with access. So there probably will be some, like, adding people to the right team so they have the right access for what they've got to do. But that's the next proposal to come out of me.
All right. Yay for proposal waterfall. All right. And next on the agenda, we have Alex from CNCF, who is going to give us a website design update. And just for clarification, this is for kubernetes.io/community, not necessarily the contributor site, which we'll hear about in a second. Alex,
Hi.
you want to take it away? Hey.
Can you hear me okay? Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so I took into account the feedback that I got from a couple of you, and I've sort of revised it and landed on a layout that I think might work, but I'll show it to you. I'll share my screen and then we can go from there. So 1 second.
Pretty much.
Can everyone see?
Yep, all good.
Great. Okay, so this was the third design that I had before. I just felt like it probably matches the site the best, and I did take some elements from the other designs that I thought looked the best, so combined them all together. So this is obviously a header. I've heard this photo isn't good, so obviously we replaced that, or not good, but it's not the right photo. And then this is kind of like a separate nav, so it's just anchor links. So it'll take you, just because the page is really long, so it'll take you down the page when you click, obviously. And then I need, obviously, to get text here, just kind of placeholder, some images. We can obviously include more images or different images. And then this is this upcoming events sort of widget that I designed that I think is pretty basic and might need some more search fields. I think that might be the issue, but otherwise the design is somewhat done. And then something about meetups. Obviously this text is placeholder, and then find a meetup will just link you to the other page, a meetup page. And then a video section for webinars. I guess different types of videos we could separate them into. And then top resources, I included discuss as asked. And then this is the new contributor site placeholder banner. Obviously, I just need to revise that, but I just need to get sort of text. And I had a meeting yesterday, and now I understand sort of what it is more so I can probably do a better job with that. But for now, that's there. And then someone asked to include a code of conduct, so that would just take you to the page, obviously. And then recent news. This is a Twitter embed, but we can obviously include other stuff, embed other stuff as well. Great. And that is all. Sorry about that.
Thank you so much, Alex. I think I've said I'm so excited like 45 times, so I'm not going to say it anymore. And I do have some comments, but I'd actually like to open up to the floor first. Does anybody have any comments, questions, or feedback for Alex?
What was the meetup thing? You kind of scrolled past.
Oh yeah, sorry if I was fast to do that. This was just a section that where did I find this? Do we have it? Is meetup a thing? Like a
Yep.
big include? So
Yeah, you can use the CNCF Meetup API since they have the pro account.
Okay, that sounds good. I can do that. But this is just kind of a section overview. I wasn't sure if it should be. This might not be that good of a representation of it. I'm not sure. This in my head, this button would link to another page, but we can probably change that. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think that works. Or maybe even like listing like the top 5 largest, and then say find yours or something. I mean, I think we can talk about the text and things like that. But I think it's really nice to have a meetup representation on the community site, since we do have a very large meetup network.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I mean, either we just go ahead and link to the CNCF meetups page, which I'm trying to find right now. I know it exists. Or, if we wanted to actually have dynamic content there, then what would make sense would be a ticker showing the next upcoming 3 meetups, regardless of where in the world they are, I think. But I'm not sure that's required, because people really care about the meetup near them, not necessarily the fact that there's a meetup in Poland in 8 hours if they live in China.
Yeah. And I think this would be good for like a V2, Alex. So I feel like if you don't necessarily need to stress about this, I think,
Okay.
in my opinion, the calendar is the most important piece on this pie, as well as the contact us to get Discuss added to that, and just to keep the resources that people can reach out. Can we actually add text, just a small amount of text? I'm not talking about anything serious, but the small
Yeah.
amount of text after the resources, because I think it might be important to, like, okay, so yeah, stay right there. So like, for instance, kind of list why people should go there and for
Yeah.
what reasons, but in a very concise way. Like, you know, for instance, Discuss would be like, come talk to us about anything. Twitter could be like the latest hot trends and news. GitHub would be where we make decisions. Stack Overflow, ask us technical questions. Slack, join the conversation or something.
Yeah, for sure. That sounds good.
Anybody else have questions, concerns, comments for Alex? Alex, I have one more thing for the actual calendar itself. So you're showing the top 3 events. Is there any way where we can like get a full calendar view?
Yeah, I can include that as well. Maybe
Awesome.
below it somewhere.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay.
Like just like a drop down so people can select it if that's what they want.
Yep.
Or maybe like a week's view, some other elongated view outside of just the 3 that we're seeing, and a search bar.
Maybe just like a little button to switch from like, you know, next 3 days, week, month, or whatever for that little section there.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Okay, great.
And
so,
then go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, keep going. No, keep going.
I was just going to say, how do we need to power you with those events?
Yes. So this is the only section that I'm not. I know it's possible. Obviously, I don't have necessarily the skills to create it.
Okay.
But I know 100% it is doable, and I can figure out how to do it. I spoke to. There might be someone on your team that has developments. You said front. Anyways, I have to figure out I'm going to need help for this section, to build this section for sure. But the rest of the page I can build myself, definitely. So in terms of feeding the information to me for the events, do you have anything like that now? No way.
Well, so right now we only have we have a hidden SIG calendar that's powering our SIG meetings. Like we took the calendar off the community site temporarily, but it's still technically up. But the problem that we're having now is we're trying to think about centralizing that service, because as it stands right now, there are separate calendar invites owned by separate parties, which is a mess for calendars on a website. So that's why we're just trying to figure out like how to do this. But I see Josh. I'm not just talking about KubeCons, but stuff like Helm Summit. Yep. Yeah, so I guess there would also need to be some kind of like submit your event button.
Yeah.
And then I don't know how I wonder if we could actually, you know what we could do? We could probably get a Slack bot to take the events channel in Slack and post them as events on the site.
So we're probably going to talk about
let
this in
me add a few
a minute.
words about this.
I'm sorry, there was a couple people talking at the same time.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, let's see her speaking. So officially we have 2 or 3 events during the year that are called KubeCons, Cloud Native Cons, that are organized by CNCF. And we have a couple of events that are supported by CNCF, the third-party events. I'm not sure that we should include the Slack bot that will automatically add some events from the events channel, because anybody can add any information there. And these events will not be definitely verified by us, but we may use that as some kind of source of truth. So I would start with adding KubeCons as the official events there, and the events that CNCF is supporting in the scope of Kubernetes.
Yeah, I think that there's a way where we could have a buffer, an approval buffer before it actually goes live. The events Slack would actually just take care of the data entry and the submission from the user itself. I actually think Jeff just commented that they're probably going to talk about something similar in a second. So we can sidebar that conversation for automation. But Alex, why don't we get another meeting together with a small crew of people, and if there's anybody on this line that wants to be included, ping me, and then we can talk about things like like getting the exact copy that you need, and which features that what features we want on the first release, and then we can prioritize that for you. So I will start us an email thread about availability and stuff after this call. So George,
Sounds great.
Alex, I'm sure, Caitlin, anybody else want to join?
Please let me.
Okay,
Igor.
Igor. Okay.
And speaking about if we are going to establish the dedicated call for discussing the event specifically, if we're going to run a thread about the events, I would suggest to it also people from CNCF who are managing events and third-party events. So
Okay, that's a good idea.
Enough information, much more information than me or Alex about what are our plans for the upcoming events and how can we get more textual information about what should be there on that page in that piece.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, I envision like user office hours and all the stuff that's not a SIG meeting, because all the SIG meetings will be on the contributor site. So, like everything else that's like everything we were just talking about, KubeCons, whatever. All right. Questions, concerns, comments. Last call for Alex. All right. So then next up, we've got notification fan out with George and Jeff. Hello, George. Thanks for joining us.
Sorry I'm late, but Jeff is going to take this, and I think he has a solution to your problems.
Hopefully. And originally, a contributor site was next, but this seems a bit more relevant since we were talking about automating notification of events. So with the new contributor site and, just trying to automate more, when you guys are cutting releases, you're sending, Slack messages out, you're posting to Discuss, you're posting to Twitter. If we start using like a single source of truth, we could actually fan that out. Now, I'm also not a fan of having, multiple third-party services, but when George was talking to me about this, it kind of sounded like there is a solution. So share screen. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
It's
all right.
Very small.
That's fine. We're not going to be focusing on that. Has everyone or anyone heard of If This Then That?
Yes.
So If This Then That started as a home automation type service where, it detects an event of like motion detection, turn on a light. And then it turned into just a crazy bus of things. So just for, testing and being silly, I wound up plugging in a bunch of news feeds off of GitHub and to Discuss to generate tweets and generate Slack messages, mind you, to myself for testing, but that's kind of what I started doing. So we can actually, like this one is, whenever there's a new COPS release, send an email to from me to Discuss, and then it'll automatically post to announcements on Discuss. George removed me from being an admin, so it'll go into a moderation queue, so we could actually, not flood Discuss. But then there's another part of this, which is if there is a new, where is it? If there's a newsfeed item from Discuss, post a tweet. If there's a newsfeed item on Discuss, post a Slack message. So you just start fanning things out. We start using Discuss more as a means to fan out things to Slack and Twitter. Setting this up is super easy. So easy, in fact, that George gave me a good example. So let's do one that I haven't done yet. So if we want to do an RSS feed, how about Kubernetes.io's feed? So we'll create, whenever there's a new post to Kubernetes.io, then we will post it to Slack, or post it to Discourse. So Gmail. And then send an email to Kubernetes plus announce at discoursemail.com. It auto-populates a bunch of stuff, but the only other thing we need to do is get rid of the IFTT branding because I ain't a fan of that. And then it just asks, are you sure? Finish. Cool. So if there's a new post on Kubernetes.io, it'll automatically post to discuss. When it automatically posts to discuss, it'll automatically Slack to myself and post to Twitter. And just as proof, this wound up happening a couple days ago. But yeah.
So I think the idea while he's showing this is that we wanted to basically like, before we're like, come on, Caitlin, post announcements to discuss. Now we're just like, you know what? We're just going to grab your RSS feed and you go with your workflow. And if we apply that to a bunch of things in Kubernetes, release team, associated ecosystem tools, we can kind of get an incoming queue, all things moderated, of course, that our moderation team could say, okay, this one's good, let it through. Uh-oh, this one's CNCF related, but not quite Kubernetes related. Maybe we don't want this one, and so on.
Yeah, and one thing that I don't think I kind of touched on, but we can actually do things where, you know, if you're just manually posting to discuss some announcement, that'll still fan out. Or we can tie things into a new release gets cut, so it automatically tries posting to discuss. A new blog post gets posted, it automatically tries posting to discuss, and then discuss fans it out from there. And absolutely we should, because I don't want my Gmail account to be the only thing there. This was solely just a test, Josh.
Yeah. The other thing that I'll say from having been an IFTT user for a long time, IFTT is not good about keeping up with changes to services and APIs. Mm-hmm. So someone will have to be in charge of periodically checking for failures.
So I wanted to comment very similarly to Josh in the fact that it's sometimes also unreliable and shuts off certain recipes. Mm-hmm. So we've actually at Red Hat, we've kind of just gone over to Zapier, however you say it.
Sure.
Which essentially does the same thing. It's a little bit more robust as far as like what you can do. Like you can string together more than just like 1, 2, 3 kind of things.
Yeah. So one of the reasons we picked this is we just wanted to show what it would look like. Cool. Because at first, like, we didn't want to write a whole bunch of custom code to talk to all these APIs ourselves. So that could be Zapier, that could be that. You know, I
just getting the proof of concept through.
Yeah, exactly. So like, if you all feel that we should investigate that, I think we could do that. But as far as who owns this, I would like to just roll this up as part of the discuss/community subgroup, because I feel like part of the reason we wanted to do the forum was to be able to aggregate this stuff. But agree on having like an account owned by the organization, CNCF, whatever the actual thing is. We just wanted to get a few feeds going to kind of show people what's possible. So
Garrett and I have been working on automation for mentoring as well. And we looked into IFTT, same literally +1 to both Josh and Chris. We also are semi-using Zapier, whatever. But Garrett is actually cooking up his own bash scripts. So I think we should also have a larger conversation with us because Garrett found that in order for it to work for us, because we have ownership docs problems, sure. And with automation, that's going to be hard. And again, that's kind of like also what I was saying with the event stuff is like ownership issues. Yeah. Yeah, let's have some kind of like a sidebar conversation, and I can get Garrett on the phone too. I know we've halted a little bit on the mentorship automation piece, but this might be some good things for us to kick it up again. So
excellent.
All right. Last questions, concerns, comments for George, Jeff.
Quick comment. If you have anything else that you think we should be consuming, let me know, and then we'll start thinking about it, because not everything has an RSS feed, unfortunately. Yep. So maybe there's some things we can do.
All right. And then last on our list is George and Bob. So George, but switching out Bob for Jeff. Or Jeff for Bob.
Bob, it's all you. Yeah. They come as a pair.
Yeah, it's a hive mind. That and he's right there.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the contributor site repo is now live. Got created just the other day, and I moved over my POC codebase to it. What it essentially does is it grabs the Kubernetes community repo, does a little bit of, honestly, bash magic, and does some set replaces, put files in different places, rename some things, and will produce a Hugo website out of it. And I can either share my desktop or just share the link in there. Okay. So this site here is completely auto-generated from the Kubernetes community site. I literally picked an off-the-shelf theme, so it's not the prettiest thing by any means. But it will generate all this based off folder structure outside of a couple things. Essentially, if there's a README in the directory, it will then become a folder in there. The nice thing is that with Netlify, there we go, integration, anyone that posts, does a PR to like the Kubernetes community repo can get a preview of it. So I had Jeff testing against my personal copy of it all. And so, as you can see, he made a small change there. But other than that, like it's honestly really simple. And we can, everyone is pretty familiar with Hugo. It's what we use for the Kubernetes website currently. And if people want to take a look, SIGs.
Yeah, one thing Bob was working on as well, when it generates, it makes really sane URLs, so we don't need to paste around long GitHub URLs for, membership or mentoring or whatever. It'll be like, contributor.kubernetes.io/mentorship. Something t-shirtable, I think is what we're going for.
There's a couple of problems, like the Hugo Markdown renderer versus GitHub Markdown renderer are different and do render things differently. So I don't know what you would necessarily want to build towards, but giving people at least the preview of their PR would mean that they could, take a look at it over there and make sure it looks good, at least in the website form. And again, like this version of it is literally just off the shelf, not styled, very, very vanilla. The other problem is that there's some things like images, which will require a little bit of magic to get in the right location. But other than that, it's not too bad. And then we can also have, explicit static pages defined in there.
So the workflow is GitHub Markdown, gets auto-generated in Hugo, and then published via Netlify, I'm assuming?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought there were themes that could do that parsing. Sorry, George. Let me look and see. I'll check my email real quick and see if there's something like that.
This is one of the few themes that actually will auto-generate the menu on the side from folder structure.
Yeah, that's.
How can we not do that? I know how can we, for instance, can you scroll over? Can you click the down arrow on the special interest groups and then also on the working groups? Because I think they're pretty much the same.
Ooh.
Okay, good. No, they were, I feel like the last iteration. Okay, cool. Well,
yeah,
it's the same content. That's what I meant. Okay, yeah, it's the same content on the working groups and the special interest groups. So I feel like maybe we should just combine those two, for instance. But I didn't know if, based off of what Netlify is pulling, like what you're saying, if it's just pulling the structure, then would we be able to change that structure manually on the Hugo side?
Yeah, we can change the structure manually. It's just got to know, essentially just, is matching, this starts with SIG-something, put it in this directory.
Okay, cool.
And that was written with bash, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
I feel like we should just have 4 to 5 items on the menu, and then for instance, governance, the top 3 that you had was governance, SIG governance, and community membership. I feel like that we can start to like combine those things for it to make sense.
And we can have, our own separately managed static pages on there too. And that's mostly if you want to have like, do more things JavaScripty or other interactive pretty things, or like a calendar.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like calendar too is something that we should figure out before the first iteration goes out. Like I feel like the calendar and the caps are the two most important thing that need to go out, and then the rest can be like coming soon. Because the calendar is highly missed right now from our contributor audience to find SIG meetings. So that's why I want to try to get that up as soon as possible.
Yeah, I don't know if Alex is listening, but we're already engaging her as far as like, make this pretty. We have no idea what we're doing.
I'm here.
Okay, awesome.
That sounds good, yeah.
And then the last bit, Chris, I just wanted to mention that the intent was for all SIG leads and anyone contributing to the community repo to not notice any change. Like we didn't want to change their workflow at all. So initially we looked at reorganizing the community site, and then I was like, everyone's going to hate this. So that's why we're pulling and then doing stuff and then throwing it away each time. I do have a few questions. Does anyone know, is it just a docs team I asked about getting Bob a Netlify account that's like a Kubernetes Netlify?
Yep.
Okay. And then the last bit, there's been some confusion, and some of it I've created myself, is with the community page being /community, I was just thinking about this yesterday. Originally, we were thought about community.kates.io. Contributor.kates.io, I think is better. I don't know.
A lot better.
Okay, because we've gone back and forth. Okay. So contributor.kubernetes.io it is then, right?
I fully support that.
Okay, good. All right, sorry, there was some confusion there, mostly.
Does anybody else have any suggestions or comments about the domain name or the URL? Anyone? All right,
Yeah, and once we get the domain, I think we're going to soft launch so that we can get Google, the search engine, indexing the URLs, because right now if you Google for stuff, it's all GitHub things, and we want to kind of get the end user pretty looking ones as opposed to the raw markdown file.
Cool.
I think really the only other thing that might have to be a user change in like the community repo is if you're going to have a static asset, so linking an image or something like it, just create a subfolder called static, and then I can pick that up and put in the right location for everything to link up and be nice and pretty.
That's a good idea.
It doesn't have to be static. It could be assets or just something consistent.
All right, last call for contributor site. Questions, concerns, comments? Any other questions, concerns, comments before we completely end the call? All right, I feel like we actually are moving forward with so much stuff. So I'm just so excited right now. I know I don't look excited, I'm tired.
Oscon and Google Next were like in the way. I was like, let's get to work.
I literally have been on the road for 4 weeks.
I hear you.
So I'm just dying right now. I hope to join this call in the next 2 weeks from a beach. So, and that's it for us. So we shall see you on the mailing lists. Lots of stuff going on. So that means our mailing list should be flourishing right now with decisions. All right. Catch you on the flip side. Same time, same place next week.
Thank you, Paris.
Bye, Gwen. Hope you feel better.
Thank you.
Jeff, thanks for all your work. Chris, thanks for the notes. Bob, thanks for your work. Josh, always thanks for everything with Shanghai too. I know you're getting prepped for that. Sadev, thanks for awesomeness. Eeyore too. Stanton, thanks for coming. Lindsay, we should catch up. I know you're super busy, but I want to catch up with you anyway. Noah, I'm sure I'll see you soon. I feel like I see you a lot. All right, bye everybody.
Thanks.